Good morning and welcome to Sunday Supplement. Liverpool have been beaten. Watford won 3-0 against Jurgen Klopp's side, and we'll be discussing what impact that result and the manner of it may have on the rest of Liverpool's season. It's Carabao Cup final day, but what chance do massive underdogs Aston Villa stand against Manchester City, who won away at Real Madrid on Wednesday? And ahead of a key game at Goodison Park, we'll discuss how Everton and Manchester United have evolved since Everton's thumping win in that fixture last season. Plus, in part 5 of today's show, we'll be asking, is there a regional bias in print football journalism, or is it a myth that all sports editors support London teams? No regional bias in the studio today with London's finest, John Cross. He told us to introduce him like that. Chief football writer at The Mirror, Daily Mail reporter in the North West, Dominic King, and Midlands guru for The Telegraph, John Percy, making his debut today. You are very welcome.
Morning.
I've given you the big build-up, haven't I? Don't forget, you can tweet the show at Sunday Sup, and the best will appear on screen over the next 90 minutes or so. Well, I tell you, the papers this morning have been an absolute treat to read. It is joyful having an hour and a half or so just to read back pages with no small children at your ankles, by the way. I recommend you going out and buying one today because there's so much great content across all of the papers. The Mail have Klopp shock, as you might expect, after the 3-0 Watford win, ending Liverpool's invincible run. They have an interview with Nuno, as a couple of the papers have as well. Really good insight there. The Mirror, Rashford could be fit for the Euros, and so near, so far, after Ismaila Sarr almost completed a hat-trick, which would have been 4-0. Extraordinary in that game. Martin Lipson here in The Sun, end of the line. All the controversy about VAR and the forensic analysis of offsides, which has been winding people up quite a lot. Looks as though IFAB are going to allow the Premier League to have a thicker line when it comes to judging offside. So that'll be interesting. We'll talk about that at the top of part 3. And in the Sunday Times, there is a great deal to be getting your eyes around on that. Of course, Sarr helping to beat Liverpool after 422 days and 44 matches in the Premier League. Rashford fit for the Euros. And in the Telegraph, there's a rather large page pull-out on Beth England scoring twice to earn Chelsea their first ever League Cup. That was played at Nottingham Forest yesterday. And Jill Scott, unfinished business before she retires. That's ahead of the She Believes Cup, which is a huge tournament for Phil Neville's England side. Wow, we have got a lot to fit in, so I'm going to stop talking about newspapers and start talking to you, Dom King, because you were at that match yesterday at Vicarage Road, which I'm sure you put a fiver on that result, didn't you? But where... You put a 10. But where would you place the line between Watford being absolutely outstanding and Liverpool being shocking on the day?
It's always hard in a story like this to know which way to go, and I think it's very, very important to emphasise just how good Watford were yesterday. You could see in the first half how well drilled they were, how well set up. The atmosphere was fantastic. The stadium was alive all the way through. So they need to be given credit for a result that can possibly transform their season, see them get out of relegation trouble. Nigel Pearson's done wonders since he's been in, given how bad of a situation they were in at the beginning of the season. Liverpool just had a horrendous day, probably the worst they've had since they played Tottenham at Wembley in October 2017. No complaints about it. Jurgen Klopp never had any quibbles. Virgil van Dijk said it was unacceptable, and they just slipped so far below the standards that they set that Watford ran all over them.
Oh, after that initial upturn in form under Nigel Pearson, they've gone several games without a win. That came out of the blue, but you know Nigel Pearson pretty well from his time at Leicester, don't you? What was he like then?
He was fantastic. I mean, obviously you had to get to know him. Obviously from the press conferences you see, he's in the zone. You know, he's like Nuno at Wolves. You know, he just sometimes just wants to talk football. Doesn't like questions where he's put on the spot. But he's a terrific manager. What he did at Leicester with the final great escape, obviously got them promoted from League One all the way. I think it was 7 wins out of 9 in the final season. Obviously he's been talking about that this week, doing that again with Watford. And I mean, him and Craig Shakespeare, I mean, they're just a great little double out. They dovetail really well together on the training ground, and just the way they bounce off each other. So, I mean, they're giving themselves a great chance, haven't they? It's just, you know, the results yesterday were just fascinating for the relegation fight, and obviously Norwich on Friday night as well.
Yeah, you say fascinating. Aston Villa say absolutely horrific, but we'll come on
Yeah.
to them in the next part. But were you shocked by what you saw, John?
Yeah, I was really. I mean, first half, I did think it was a bit of a stalemate. Really, it wasn't much of a game, was it? But the difference I think that you see in Watford is that with Nigel Pearson, I mean, they've been through some managers this season. We shouldn't forget that. I'm not massively in favour of Watford's revolving door policy on managers. I think that strikes me as a club that's not that well run. You can't argue otherwise. But they just stay in the Premier League. And as soon as they got Nigel Pearson, I thought, well, here's one that's inspirational. It's a good managerial appointment because they're well drilled, they're well put together, aren't they? And I just felt that, having seen Liverpool quite a lot recently, I just felt they weren't quite firing, they weren't quite at the top of their game, and they're always vulnerable. And it was interesting to hear Klopp talk afterwards about having the team being under some sort of burden, because everyone talks about these records. Beating Man City's, record of 18 consecutive wins set a couple of years ago. Catching Arsenal's Invincibles record of 49 games unbeaten. Going the season unbeaten to win the title. And I just think those sort of things do weigh on players' minds. You can talk all day about it and deny it, and players probably say the same thing. Liverpool is a fantastic place to be. Sort of Melwood is absolutely buzzing. The players are really sort of kind of happy there. It's an amazing place. But I just think that burden of history just seems to have weighed on them. They're the best team by a million miles in the country. They're absolutely fabulous to watch. But it just feels like they've had their little dip in the last few weeks. That coupled with the winter break, the sort of the controversy around that. And I just think they came to Watford yesterday and met up against a really good, well-drilled Watford team. And that was the obstacle a little bit too far. But I just think Liverpool, we'll look back, and it's a shame they sort of kind of can't create more history. But they will create history of sorts, because they'll beat the points tally, I'm sure. They'll set records left, right and centre. This team is such a great team. But it almost feels like, with this defeat, they'll hit the reset button, go again, and basically hit those heights again. There's nothing to worry about. I think they could easily win on Tuesday night. I still think they'll turn around that Atletico Madrid game. They'll win it. They'll win the title by an absolute country mile.
Privately, I think there'll be a sense of relief as well. I think, obviously they wanted to extend the record, but, we're not going to be asking them about that anymore. They've lost this game. They can just get on with it now and win the league. They've lost the game. You're looking at the league table, it's 22 points. I mean, let's just put that into perspective. There's no whiff of a title race here, is there, unless it's going to be the most spectacular collapse ever. But I think privately there'll be some sort of relief where we've lost a game, we don't have to be asked about it again, we can just keep going now and just get the job done.
John said it was a shame they won't have the Invincibles tag. Not if you're an Arsenal supporter, hey? Oh, they were all over social media last night. Where do we build the statue outside the Emirates to Ismail Assar? They were rather chuffed about that. And so they should enjoy it as well. But, John mentioned there, Dom, the winter break and the fact they haven't been at their intense best since then. Do you think it's because of the impact of the break, for whatever reason, maybe that they mentally got to reset? Do you think it's anything to do with Jordan Henderson being out and what they lack from his drive and his intensity in midfield, and of course injuries at the back?
Absolutely. Well, Joe Gomez missed yesterday. It's only a little tight hamstring. It's nothing too serious. He should be back within the week. They missed the captain 100% yesterday. He's been the player of the season for Liverpool. I know others get the headlines like Salah, Mane, Firmino, Van Dijk. People talk about the fullbacks. The person who's been driving them forward over the last 2-3 months has been Jordan Henderson. I think he could win PFA Player of the Year. He's been that good. They missed him. There was a huge void yesterday without him. In terms of how they've been since the winter break, they've definitely been a beat or two slower. There's just at Norwich they sort of managed the game like almost shadow boxing, and they had a little bit too much wiliness to get the better of Norwich. They were scruffy against West Ham in parts, but never really felt they were going to lose that game. But then yesterday, the tone was set early on. Trent Alexander-Arnold tried to play a ball back, and he put it straight out to play to Alisson, clipped it out, and it was just those little bits of detail, the standards that they've set, they weren't there. But as the lads have said, it's nothing fatal, and that's why I think it was important to emphasised just how well Watford did. They took advantage, and that day was as much about them winning yesterday as it was Liverpool losing.
Yeah, and Watford's so up for it with the physical battle as well, which it looked as though Liverpool perhaps weren't quite up for. And early clattering of Trent Alexander-Arnold, was that maybe in his head? And it's just sort of game absolutely set for Troy Deeney, wasn't it?
He loved that game, didn't he? I mean, Lovren and Van Dijk, I mean, they won't have faced many games like that. I mean, this is the old throwback, isn't it? Nigel loves the strikers to be, you know, imposing and physical. That was the sort of game that was tailor-made for them, wasn't it? It was just fantastic to watch, just real old-school game.
I'll tell you, I felt sorry for this weekend was that Norwich get a big result Friday night.
Exactly, yeah.
Everyone else wins this weekend. It's almost negated. I mean, I was just trying to make the point the other night on Twitter, basically, just saying Norwich. I think I can't remember a
Fantastic team. Yeah.
Absolutely.
I can't
How are
believe
they
they're
bottom of the table?
Yeah.
They are the best.
They're brilliant.
You know, don't take this the wrong way, but they are the best bottom of the table team.
They must be fed up
in the
with hearing
Premier
it as
League.
well.
Era. It's crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, they play really good football. They're attractive to watch. They've got good players, terrific fullbacks.
Yeah.
Ben Godfrey, I think, is a good centre back. You know, Cantwell's obviously making a name for himself.
Buendia,
Pookie,
fantastic.
absolutely, he was
Yeah.
great the other night. Buendia,
Yeah.
wasn't he? And so you kind of you feel for them a bit. But I just think that it's a hell of a race down the bottom. So it almost feels like the Premier League title race has become a turn-off, really, because Liverpool are so good, they're embarrassing everyone else. And by the way, I think, you know, my vote 100% goes to Henderson, being sort of kind of streets ahead as a leader and as a player, fabulous, you know, player of the year. And they've embarrassed everyone else. But it feels like the race now for top four, or top five it could be, couldn't it, basically, for the Champions League places and the relegation scrap, is the most exciting race of all. And that's a massive, that's no way detrimental to Liverpool, because it's a massive tribute to Liverpool, just of how good they have been. I mean, you know, you mentioned the Invincibles. It shows the sheer genius of great teams of the past. To win the title unbeaten is an amazing achievement, you know, and that's obviously why Arsenal and, you know, Arsenal fans taking so much pride on that, you know, and Arsene Wenger deserves so much credit on that. But this Liverpool team, for me, I mean, football evolves, and, you know, at the moment, I thought 2 years ago, Man City, no one will ever reach those heights again. Guardiola's setting new barriers, new parallels, really. I mean, he's an absolute genius for me, Guardiola, in the way that he got Man City to play. And then Liverpool this season have surpassed it. Absolutely astonishing.
It's like PlayStation football.
It's crazy.
The results. It's like the kids are playing and, win. You know, it's just not been seen before.
It's not been fair.
No, it's like when you see those like sequences of W's, it's almost like on the PlayStation, the kids churn out results like that. It's just been remarkable, and that's why there is such a shock that it's come to an end.
It is incredible, especially when you think how many variables during football matches can mean that by far the better team on the day doesn't always win and can draw a game. And yet they've managed to, until now, win every single game bar one. They have ridden their luck on occasions.
We've spoken
their
about
opponents
the
will
Villa
say
game,
that.
haven't we?
They have, yeah.
The Villa game in last year. I think Villa were 1-0 up with
3 minutes
87,
to go.
88. Liverpool just kept going. It was relentless, and they won 2-1. Mane scored, didn't he? The second
Mane
goal.
and Robertson equalised.
Yeah, and it was just incredible just to watch this force of nature, this red machine, just power towards victory. And Villa just had no answer.
That is one of the things people talk about, the quality of the football they play. It's the sort of mentality, that refusal to even contemplate that they're going to lose, all stems back to how they beat Barcelona last year. In fact, it probably even goes further with when they put the sequence of wins together to put the pressure on Manchester City in the race for the title. What they've done over the last year has been remarkable. It was like 109 points from 111.
Not good enough.
I know, terrible.
But it's
It
almost
does
like
embarrass the rest of the league, I have to say. It does embarrass the rest of the league.
Does it embarrass though, or do you just have to pull your hands up sometime and
There's
say,
a bit of both,
you're watching
Dom.
genius?
Yeah, I think there's a bit of both. We are watching the best team, I think, in sort of the Premier League era, because every team, you know, as I say, football evolves and they're taking it to a whole new level. But I do think, as well as, you know, it's not a criticism of Liverpool in any way, but as brilliant as they have been, for other teams not to have responded. I've been disappointed in City's title defence. I mean, last season was a thrilling Premier League simply because that toe-to-toe, we've never seen anything like it. And that was incredible. In any other year, Liverpool win it by an absolute streak then.
I think
and
those
that was
two are
thrilling.
still the best by a country mile.
Yeah, absolutely,
Obviously,
yeah.
Liverpool way ahead. But Man City, I mean, Leicester failed to beat them twice. I think they're short of them at the moment. You know, a few additions. maybe they could get closer. But those two, streets ahead of everyone else, I think.
We'll talk about Man City in part two, but just on Liverpool for a minute. I mean, the mental strength that they've had to get to this stage of the season, to march, for goodness sake, having only dropped points once before now. Was that slightly their undoing yesterday in terms of they can't possibly be mentally at that level every single week in the Premier League? They are human beings.
Yeah, I think there's also that sort of loneliness of being in front, where you haven't got the pressure of somebody applying, snapping away at your heels to try and force a mistake out of you. They've been in front for so long that perhaps they just lost a little bit of concentration. But what they've done has just been, I know we've said it before, but it has just been remarkable.
They almost get damned with faint praise, I think. It almost gets boring. And it's like, how can such a run be considered, you know, you almost forget about it, oh, Liverpool have won again. But to have that many points at this stage of the season is incredible.
They need to make sure the season doesn't peter out now, because if they do go out the FA Cup at Chelsea and then, you know, they're 1-0 down against Atletico Madrid, they could have a couple of months with nothing riding on those fixtures. It'll be a bit of a victory tour of, you know, trophy parade around the country, wouldn't it, if they're not careful?
It might sound strange to see, but it could be anticlimactic if they've got the season, the title wrapped up by the first week of April. You almost wonder whether they need a second trophy to really show the dominance of in the domestic season. But you know, that's why I think the FA Cup game on Tuesday night is so important.
I think they'll turn around Atletico. Really do. I don't.
That'll be some night, that, won't it?
It will be some night, and I do think on nights like that, the Kop really does become sort of that mythical force, really, when it does sort of kind of suck the ball in. And I've no doubt about it. I do think that Atletico are really well drilled, great defensive, but I still think Liverpool do that. And
let's just finish on Watford, because we have to give them even more credit.
Absolutely.
I know everybody is, but I mean, the fact they lost Gerard Deulofeu early on, fascinating seeing Sarr as well. Summer signing as a 21-year-old as he was then, from Rennes. Sabri Lamouchi, the Forest manager, was his boss. And he wasn't really played. 17 minutes of Premier League football is given by Javi Gracia. And apparently that was his undoing. That's why they sacked him, because they weren't playing the £30 million signing.
Yeah.
How good do you reckon he could be?
He looks a real prospect, doesn't he? I mean, there's been a lot of talk around him for years. I think we did an interview with him, Jason Bird did an interview with him, and I think Watford wanted him to play before he was interviewed, because they wanted him to show what he could do. And obviously last night, where's he been? I think it was tremendous. But, you know, they're a really good, well-drilled team, Watford. I mean, I like the back four, the way they play at the back. I like Decore. You know, I think he's a great player. They've got some good players now. Now they're out the bottom. Capoue, obviously, but they're out the bottom three, and that, like you said yesterday, for Villa and Brighton, bad, but for everyone else, fantastic.
Oh, I just love staring at the relegation places. It's as a neutral, it's wonderful to watch, isn't it? It's so close.
Not
Watford just out. No, exactly. Watford just out the bottom four on goal difference. Bournemouth just in it after their 2-2 draw against Chelsea, and then Villa 2 points off it. Norwich have a fighting chance, 6 points off safety. It's going to be fun, isn't it? Now, coming back in part two, we'll be discussing the Carabao Cup final and whether Aston Villa can pull off a shock against Manchester City. Join us in a second.